Amongst 100 men, there may be none fit for the Adeptus Astartes, but amongst 100 Space Marines, there may be one fit for the Deathwatch. The Deathwatch, known as the Long Vigil and the Long Watch, is a unique chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, comprised solely of veteran Space Marines that serves the Ordo Xenos of the Imperial Inquisition as its Chamber Militant. They are the warriors of last resort, when the Inquisition needs access to firepower greater than that which the Astra Militarum or a team of its own Acolytes or Throne Agents can provide. Across the galaxy, there are innumerable hostile alien civilizations that threaten humanity. From the green-skinned orcs to the monstrous Tyranids, sadistic Drukhari, spectral Catan, or undying Necrons. It is the sacred task of the Deathwatch to stand sentry against all of these terrible Xenos races, and many more besides. They are ready to act when such ancient evils rise to threaten mankind once more. The Space Marines of the Deathwatch form the first and often only line of defense against these inhuman horrors. Unlike other Space Marines, the ones serving in the Deathwatch are not truly a separate chapter of the Adeptus Astartes. Rather, they are a collection of veteran Space Marines drawn from all of the different extant chapters who serve together in the Inquisition's service for a discrete period of time. To be chosen by one's chapter to serve in the Long Vigil, the Deathwatch, is a great honour for any Space Marine. Only the most elite and experienced members of a chapter are ever chosen for this extremely hazardous tour of duty, the specifics of which must be kept secret by inquisitorial order and sacred oath even from a Deathwatch Astartes home chapter. Deathwatch Space Marines do not usually form the standard tactical groups like squads and companies generally used by Adeptus Astartes. Instead, they operate as small special forces units in close-knit groups of specialists called kill teams. If a Xenos threat is particularly dangerous, several kill teams may be assigned to deal with it. But if the threat is still too much for even the Deathwatch to handle, the Inquisition will be forced to turn to a full Space Marine chapter or to multiple regiments of the Imperial Guard to deal with it. Chapter History. Origins. We do not hate the alien because he is different, we hate the alien because he had naught but hate in his heart for us. The exact origins of the Deathwatch are uncertain, but its inception can be traced to the period known as the Time of Rebirth in 544.M32, and the arrival in Imperial space of the largest Orc war seen since the Ullanor Crusade, during the closing years of the Great Crusade. Led by the mysterious warlord known only as the Beast, this greenskin invasion threatened the very throne world of Terra itself. During this conflict, remembered as the War of the Beast, it was the newly elected Lord Commander of the Imperium, Chapter Master, and sole surviving member of the Imperial Fists named Corland, who devised the concept of utilizing small, veteran Astartes kill teams to eliminate vital strategic assets of the encroaching greenskins, and eventually the Beast itself. Though reluctant at first to acquiesce to the Lord Commander's plan to approve the creation of such a force, the desperate times called for desperate measures. Therefore, the High Lords of Terra consented to Corland's proposal. The original recruits for this newly created elite force were drawn from the survivors of the various chapters who took part in the initial invasion of the Beast's capital world of Ullanor. These chapters suffered severe losses during that invasion, thus standing in vigil over their fallen brethren. The seeds of the Deathwatch were sown. Lord Commander Corland eventually came to an agreement with the inquisitorial representative Waynand to assuage any doubts by the rest of the Senatorum Imperialis that the Deathwatch would fall under the purview of the Inquisition, but an Astartes would ultimately serve as chapter master. It was in the wake of the War of the Beast that the Inquisition itself was divided into the first two of the Ordo Majoris, the Ordo Malleus and the Ordo Xenos. The Deathwatch was chosen to be an integral part of the newborn Ordo Xenos and serve as its chapter militant, the way the Grey Knights served as the Chamber Militant of the demon-hunting Ordo Malleus. However, there are conflicting accounts which state the Deathwatch's origins occurred somewhat differently, and that it was founded at an unknown time centuries ago. These records state that a conclave of Inquisitor Lords, the Apocryphon Conclave of Orphite IV, convened the sole purpose of formulating an Imperium-wide strategy to combat the many Xenos threats that assailed mankind. The members of this conclave were, in the main, drawn from the ranks of the Ordo Xenos, all of whom shared the belief that one day there would come a time when humanity would be consumed by slavering Xenos beasts or enslaved to creatures of unutterably alien origins. They foresaw an age when every alien life form in the galaxy, and others from beyond it, might rise up, and the age of the Imperium would come to an end. They had no inkling when such a terrible age might come, but they knew with dreadful certainty that it surely would, and they determined that no effort should be spared to avert such an end. The conclave sat for many standard years, and bitter debate raged back and forth between Inquisitor Lords of many different positions. Some believed that every trace of alien life should be purged from the galaxy, while a few advocated the formation of alliances with those alien races, like the craft world Eldari, that could be tolerated. Some spoke of the existence of ancient godlike beings that have slumbered since the birth of mankind, awakening to enslave the galaxy, while others foresaw that death would come at the hands of an invasion from other galaxies entirely. While many Puritan Inquisitor Lords declared the Conclave itself an admission of defeat for even considering that mankind might not prevail against these threats, wiser counsel prevailed, and a strategy was eventually formulated. The Conclave would request an audience with the assembled chapter masters of the Adeptus Astartes, and ask of them a solemn undertaking. It is not known how many chapter masters assembled to hear the words of the conclave, for such an event has only occurred a handful of times in the long history of the Imperium, nor were the words of the Inquisitors recorded for posterity. Certainly, enough chapter masters must have answered the call, for a quorum of sorts was convened. The conclave presented its prophecy to the chapter masters, evoking the galaxy-wide threat of the ravening Xenos. The chapter masters, every one a veteran of 1,000 campaigns against the terrors of the Void, listened to the Inquisitor's words, and withdrew to consider the matter. The results of the chapter masters' deliberations were delivered to the conclave at sunrise the next solar day. Each of the masters and Inquisitors took a solemn oath together. They would form a new chapter, consisting of veteran space marines, highly experienced in combating the Xenos. This chapter was dubbed the Deathwatch, for it would stand guard against the doom foretold by the Conclave. Thus, to this day, this joint oath still stands. The Battle Brothers of the Deathwatch take the war against the alien to the very darkest reaches of the Void, bringing to bear such force as no individual Inquisitor could hope to muster. In this mission, the Ordo Xenos and the Deathwatch are equals, the Inquisitors rooting out and tracking down the foes for the Deathwatch to eradicate. While neither party is subject to the command of the other, both work in concert towards their common goal, according to those oaths made centuries ago. The two work closely together, ever watchful for that fateful day when the prophecies of the Conclave are realized. Whatever the truth of its birth, since the Deathwatch inception on the 32nd millennium, there have been periods when the Imperium dared to believe it was holding the Xenos menace at bay. By dint of countless martyrdoms, this hidden order has kept the segmentums of the Emperor's domains safe, until now. The crises of the time of ending and the era Indomitus have exposed how thin a line lies between the present and the alien apocalypse feared by all mankind. War upon the brink. He who allows the alien to live shares its crime of existence. In the 41st millennium, the shield of the Deathwatch has been shaken, shivered, and brought to the edge of destruction. Never before have so many threats to the fabric of humanity's realm risen up at one time. Never before have so many powerful Xenos species sought to take the galaxy for their own. 1,000 horrors gnaw and tear at the fabric of destiny, foes old and new emerging to take their chance as mankind is torn apart by its long and escalating war against chaos in the era Indomitus. The craft-world Eldari fight for a resurgence for 10 millennia in the making, taking no prisoners as they seek to burn brightly before the end. Their vile Comorite cousins, the Drukari, intend to line their larders of damned souls before the apocalypse breaks, raiding in never-before-seen numbers to leave once thriving worlds empty of sentient life, as their collections of chattel slaves grow ever larger to feed their dark appetite for suffering. The Necron dynasties awake faster than the Deathwatch can put them down, long-buried undying armies lurching to life as ancient overlords attempt to restore a lifeless order to the era of mayhem that greets their awakening. The Orcs, a threat long turned upon itself by the Deathwatch's surgical raids, are finally uniting under the prophet of Armageddon, Warlord Ghazghkull Mac Urak Thraka. Their green tsunami of violence, the Great War, is set to drown the stars. On the eastern fringe, the tech-savant armies of the Tau Empire expand aggressively, their invention of the ZFR Horizon Accelerator engine pushing them across the Damocles Gulf to steal worlds from the Imperium at a shocking pace. Further outdrift the numberless bioships of the Great Devourer, the extragalactic menace that is the Tyranids. Hive fleets Behemoth and Kraken pushed the rapacious tendrils of their remaining splinter fleets further coreward with every standard year, leaving nothing but scoured balls of rock in their wake. A dozen others encroach upon the Imperium's borders, their living bioships creeping from the void in numbers beyond sane measure. Perhaps it is Hive Fleet Leviathan that should be feared the most, for its splinter fleets emerge from under the galactic core in the era Indomitus to menace the Segmentum Pacificus and the Segmentum Solar, the seat of human civilization itself. With every standard year, more requests are levelled unto the wider Adeptus Astartes by the Deathwatch, citing ancient oaths to claim tithe after tithe. Yet, the astropathic messages flow both ways. Hundreds of chapters are formally requesting their battle brothers be discharged from their long vigils and sent back, despite the tarnishing of their honour that this entails. In this time of woe, every Space Marine is vital in the war against the dark powers that seek to capsize reality itself. Whether humanity will survive to see in a new age is unknown, but the Deathwatch is fighting with every iota of its strength to ensure it. Notable campaigns. Since the Deathwatch's inception in the mid-32nd millennium, there have been periods when the Imperium dared to believe it was holding the Xenos menace at bay. By dint of countless martyrdoms, this hidden order has kept the segmente of the Emperor's domain safe. Now, as the Great Rift ravages the galaxy in the era Indomitus, the stakes of that battle have never been higher. Age of the Shield Raised, War of the Beast, 544 to 546.m32. After the Orc tyrant, known as the Beast, nearly conquered Terra itself, the High Lords of Terra oversaw the creation of an alien hunting task force of the Adeptus Astartes. So were the seeds of what will become the Deathwatch first sown. The primogenitors get unknown date, M32. The Chaos Lord Fabius Bile's experiments in melding alien bioforms to form the perfect attack organism came to an abrupt end when the Deathwatch raided his laboratories, fighting its way through a dozen fleshy hells to put the entire complex to the torch. A deadly jest. Unknown date. M32. Through manipulation, trickery, and a series of precisely executed hit-and-run attacks, a band of Aeldari Harlequins brought the Shantoria system to the brink of a civil war. Their activities were bloodily curtailed when kill teams out of Fort Prescience cut the Xenos off from their webway and slaughtered them. The Hammer of the Deathwatch. Unknown date. M32. The prognosticars of the Grey Knights detected a coming warp rift in the Endash subsector. Upon Endash itself, rival Orc warlords had spilt rivers of gore so copious they were at risk of creating a rift to the blood god Khorne's own kingdom in the realm of chaos. Unable to reach Endash in time, the Grey Knights sent an astropathic pulse to the Deathwatch. A dozen kill teams reached Endash and slew one of the Orc warlords and his retinue using only thunder hammers, power mauls, and power fists. Bludgeoning the enemy to death with crushing weapons proved no mean feat, and it cost the kill teams a full half of their number. Yet, by limiting the blood spilt, the Deathwatch prevented the warp breach from ever happening. The surviving Orc warlord then led a greenskin crusade out of the subsector. A solar week later, Orgor beacons traced the Orc crusade into the Eye of Terror, and the matter was considered resolved. The Omega Chamber. Unknown date. M32. Aeldari Corsairs raided Fortress Omega, their target the riddle-carved Doomsday Sphere secured in the complex's null chamber. They discovered the Watch Fortress better defended than they expected, for though it is small, it houses only Venator kill teams. Hundreds of Aeldari raiders were slain before the last of them chanced upon the chamber, only to find it empty. The Doomsday Sphere was a myth. Misinformation spread to the Aeldari via mercenary contracts of the Black Fortress shields. Purge of the Urguls. Unknown date. M32. An Urgul migration spilled from the thrice-cursed ziggurats of Shardon in Komorag into real space. It flowed into the nightmarish Shard Maze, and from there to the mirrored Palace of Planitia. When the gangling predators proved strong enough to tear apart the kill team that hunted them, the Deathwatch dreadnought Xenomortis was sent to reinforce its battle brothers. Solar months later, the cybernetic war machine stormed from the ruins of the now empty mirrored palace, every inch of his hull covered in Urgul blood. Age of the Shield Shivered. M40 to M41. Amidst the snows of Atrophon. Unknown date. M40. When the world of Atrophon faced devastation by the orcs of War Dragmasha, a small kill team was sent to assassinate the big mech leading the war. A misdrop left the team on the wrong side of the storm-swollen river, caught in the teeth of a ferocious blizzard, with greenskins closing fast. The heroics that followed were the very definition of the Deathwatch's selfless strength. Bane of the Slith. Unknown date. M40. The Slanesh-worshipping Slith of the Vensine sector were attacked in their nests when kill team Decurious descended to save the world from a truly disgusting fate. To kill a Jakero. Unknown date. M40. The Deathwatch of Fort Nullifact attacked a seemingly undefended Jokero starframe, only to be met by a fleet's worth of firepower. They retreated to a safe distance, monitoring the simian aliens that clambered upon their starframe as it slowly spun out from the cosmos into the cold void. Idilia in Flames. Unknown date. M41. After a string of punitive strikes from the craft world Bieltan against the Garavissima subsector proved impossible to stop, the Deathwatch of Fort Ajax gave up the chase. Taking every flamer weapon they could muster, they instead descended to the maiden world of Idilia at the height of summer and, in conjunction with a firestorm barrage, set swathes of the world aflame. The Exodites of the planet fought hard to repel them, but the Deathwatch stayed one step ahead. Drawn by the psychic distress calls of their backwater kindred, Bealtan appeared in the night sky. Within a solar week, the Autarch of Bealtan was killed by a Kraken bolt to the head. Gossar Quintus Anomaly 681.m41. Chaplain Orton Cassius of the Ultramarines led an Aquila kill team Cassius, on an unauthorized mission without the knowledge of his watch commander to the backwater mining world of Gossar Quintus, only to discover an alien gene-stealer cult infestation known as the Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor spread not only throughout the planet but the segmentum and possibly beyond. Cryptman Gambit 997.m41. After seeing the destruction meted out by High Fleet Leviathan across a wide frontage of Imperial space, Inquisitor Fidus Cryptman of the Ordo Xenos ordered a cordon of worlds in its path laid barren or actively destroyed to starve the Tyranids of sustenance. This drastic measure saw Cryptman excommunicated by the Inquisition, with many calling for the death sentence. Meanwhile, the Inquisitor's Deathwatch allies stasis-captured a brood of gene-stealers from a space hulk and sent them into the Orc Empire of Octarius, a green-skinned stronghold coreward of the main Leviathan tendril. The Gambit was vindicated when the High Fleet followed the psychic spore of its gene-stealers into the biomass-rich Orc Empire, buying the Imperium time to regroup as Xenos fought Xenos across the system.